All right, we're live. So sorry, guys. We had some tech difficulties. Gotta love April 2020, man. Jesus Christ, what else could go on? But Apple did an update this weekend, and my software literally worked last week. I mean, you guys saw the show. Everything worked just fine. And then all of a sudden, Apple does an update. Boom, I got no audio in my software. So I was about to go live, 40 minutes ago, and zero. Okay, you guys are saying, check my audio. All right. What about right now? What's the audio sound like right now, guys? Yeah, my audio mix is probably going to be all over the place today. So let me use you guys in the live chat here to make sure that, okay, audio is good. Some of you guys are saying that it still sounds rough. Turn it down even more? Is it distorting? Okay. Yeah, I just, all right. What's that sound like? All right, they're still saying it's a bit rough, some people. Man, oh man, it's just Apple, they'll just do these patches, they'll do these updates, and then they won't tell you what the hell they're doing. So we had to go do all this troubleshooting. That's what we've been doing for the past 40 minutes or so, and it's still not perfect. So I don't know. Do I need to plug something in there, or we're good here? Turn that down. Turn that down? Okay. All right, so hopefully that fixes the issue, and we can get the show started. Okay. Can you shut the door, babe? Okay. All right, guys, so yeah, we got the bearings together. All right, in about 10 minutes, we'll have a guest on and talk to him if I can get my bearings here. That's the problem when you do a show completely by yourself. Tiffany helps me out with the technology stuff, obviously, because I don't understand this crap. But when you do it yourself, man, you got to do all the writing. You got to do all the production, all the lighting, everything. Get all the phones, make sure everything's up and running. And then I got to keep in mind what I'm supposed to talk about today. So it's all over the place. It's difficult for a one-man operation. But I appreciate you guys being here, dealing with my unprofessionalism as we get going here. Okay, let me turn up my headphones a little bit. All right, good. All right, so if there's issues with the audio throughout the show, guys, please remind me, okay? I'm about to go live over on Spreaker so you guys can listen to the audio podcast. Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode number 216 of The Neutral Corner. And today we're going to talk about DAZN. What is up over at DAZN? Can they survive the COVID thing? I think that they seriously need some shoulder programming. Also, we're going to have a special guest, Marty P Hill, USA Boxing Masters champion. He runs a gym here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be great to have him on the show. So we got a good show here. This is for the week of April 11th. Again, episode number 216 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. We're going on a little bit later than normal because we had some technical difficulties. Don't you just love technology? It's great. As always, guys, I remind you to get over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere. Make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you're leaving ratings, reviews, all that good stuff. I saw a couple of you guys comment over the last couple of weeks here on YouTube that you did not get a notification that the show is about to go live. So I know things like that are going on. There's issues with the algorithms. There's a major tech issues right now because of bandwidth problems. So make sure, A, that you're subscribed, but B, that you click that notification bell because YouTube loves to play with the algorithms and screw everything up. And right now, they're purposely manipulating the algorithms to help out all the corporate sponsored channels and bump those guys up and bump guys like me, independent operators, down the list. They love doing that. So now that everyone is basically on quarantine and you got all the late night guys and stuff broadcasting from their house, how weird is that? Seeing Jimmy Kimmel and Trevor Noah and these guys broadcasting from their living room, and you see just how unfunny these people are. They're really unfunny when they don't have their dozens of writers and production people around. They're just no charisma, just no personality. Terrible, but they're corporate backed. So the algorithm is manipulated to help them and bump them up, and so they get higher up in the searches. Anyway, guys, so make sure that you're doing that. It's a major help to me, okay? King Nello says Trevor Noah was never funny. I totally agree. Look, man, when Jon Stewart left The Daily Show, that show was finished. And the guy that brought on Trevor Noah, I just don't get it. He's just not funny. Never was. Anyway, let's get back to boxing, okay? Hope you guys are being safe out there, enjoying your quarantine life. Look, man, you got to do what you got to do. Hopefully this is the last month of it. And May 1st, we can go back somewhat to life as normal. I don't think life's ever going to be like it was before. I think there's going to be a new normal. But hopefully, whatever the hell that's going to be, we can get back to it May 1st. Speaking of getting back to normal, man, wouldn't DAZN love to get back to where they were in the fourth quarter of last year? They had a brilliant fourth quarter run. One of the best schedules that we have seen in boxing, I think, since you got to go back to the 90s to find a better 3-4 month schedule than DAZN had at the very end of 2019. But it's really gone off the rails in 2020. Of course, it's gone off the rails for everybody, right? We've all been struggling. No one's putting out content, but DAZN, here in the United States particularly, is a boxing streaming platform, right? So they don't have other sports to fall back on. And I get it. They have cricket. They have I think they have some MMA, but it's not the UFC, which is the major brand, right? That's like, we're doing football, but it's not the NFL, right? That's going to be a tough sell, especially when it's brand new. So they're a boxing app. And right now, they don't have any shoulder programming. And you guys who listen to my show, you've heard me talk about this before, that I've been saying this since, I don't know, almost a year ago. DAZN needs to pick up shoulder programming that is marketed and geared towards die-hard fight fans. Die-hard fight fans. Now, so many of these promoters and everything try to go after the casual fan, and I understand that. The casual fan, that's where the dollars are at. I get it. But day to day, week to week, month to month, it's the die-hard fans that keep this sport going. And let's face it, for DAZN, they need diehard fans because the casual fans, they're going to tune in every now and then. Maybe they'll pay the $20 for a 1-month subscription to watch Canelo Golovkin 3 because they saw those first 2 fights and they were so good. So maybe they get some casual fans for that. Maybe every now and then when Anthony Joshua fights or Canelo Alvarez fights or whatever it is, you get some casual fans buying in. But in between all that, it's the hardcore, diehard fans buying in. And right now, the shoulder programming at DAZN is this Akin Barak or Akin Barak. I don't even know how to pronounce their names. Akin Barak or Akin Barak. No one knows who the hell they are. Nobody gives a shit, right? And then they have, I think they have a podcast, or I don't think it's a podcast, but some sort of show with a couple of the guys from the DAZN commentary crew, which is fine. I understand that. But if those guys are already doing the commentary during the live fights, fans don't want to hear from them necessarily in between the fights. They want to hear from boxing people, right? So right now I saw PBC, I tweeted about this earlier. PBC is doing a thing where Ray Flores is, who's the ring announcer and calls some of their fights. I think every day this week is interviewing a different fighter. I think today it was Errol Spence. And they're putting that out on their social media. I think it was on their Instagram, their Twitter. Sorry about that, guys. I just got a huge bell in my ear because someone's texting me during my show. I tell my family not to do that. Yeah, they just did it again. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that ding, guys. That was loud. That just blew out my eardrums. I tell my family, I'm about to go live. Don't text me. And what do? They freaking text me twice. So anyway, where the hell was I? My eardrums are shattered. So with DAZN, man, you got to have shoulder programming that is geared toward the diehard fan. Because, look, what's happening right now with COVID, this is unprecedented, okay? I'm not even talking about this right now. I'm talking about just in a normal boxing schedule. You're going to have ebbs and flows. You're going to have ups and downs. And during the downtime for boxing schedules, you need some sort of shoulder programming to kind of hold fans over. You're trying to turn that down? It's right here. Sorry, guys. Tiffany's off camera. That's down. That's up. You want to turn that down? Just don't. Yeah, there you go. Tiffany's trying to turn down the notifications on my phone, so hopefully that will stop the dinging. Anyway, you need some. This show's all over the place. Hey, it's quarantine life, okay? And technology is all over the place right now. So just deal with it. They got to have something. I just listened to the Boxing Rant today. My boys Kenny and Vince were talking about this. Last night, I did Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Network and talked to Mike Goodpaster and Jeremiah Pressier about this. DAZN has to have shoulder programming. You have to have something. And I'm not talking about the shit that's geared to the casual fan, okay? Mike Tyson's podcast or Teddy Atlas's podcast, that shit is geared toward casual fans who know who those people are. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about stuff that's geared toward the diehard, educated fight fan. People who watch this show, people who watch the small club shows, the mid-level shows, boxing degenerates who buy every damn pay-per-view, right? That's who's subscribing to DAZN. That's who's subscribing to ESPN Plus right now. The big difference between ESPN Plus and DAZN is that ESPN Plus, on top of having that backing from Disney and all that money they have from, their corporate backing, they're good. But they have a ton of shoulder programming. They have the 30 for 30. They have other sports, major sports. You could get college football on there, right? You can watch all kinds of stuff. It's not just boxing. They have UFC, actual UFC. So if you're into that stuff, they have that. DAZN here in the States, I get that in other parts of the world, they have different sports. But here in the States, it's just boxing. You got to have some shoulder programming to go along with your boxing programming so that, and I'm not just talking about when the next pandemic hits. Forget that. I'm talking about the next time the boxing schedule dips and you don't have a big fight for the next, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks. What holds diehards over is that kind of stuff, right? So I'm not going to personalize this. I've talked about this before, and some people talked a bunch of shit about me because I talk too much about myself. Okay, forget about that. Let's say DAZN picks up shows like The Boxing Rant, T Street Controversy, picks up a podcast from the UK, a Spanish language podcast from Mexico, okay? Gets a few different, let's say 5 different podcasts from actual boxing guys on the beat. I'm not talking about Teddy Atlas, and nothing against Teddy, but what he does is geared toward casuals. It's for clickbait. He called Gennady Golovkin a shot fighter last week to get clicks. It worked, by the way. You guys all helped him out there and made him some money with that, so good job. But that's geared toward a different fan base. That's the shit that you're going to see when Fury and Wilder fight for the 3rd time, right? And you see all those preview shows for that pay-per-view. That's the type of people they're going to have on those preview shows because that's who they're trying to get. Who do I call it? Joe Sixpack, the middle America casual fight fan, okay, that tunes into 1 or 2 boxing shows a year. DAZN don't need to pick that shit up. So this Akin Barak or whatever the hell they got going on there, that ain't cutting it. Get on some real boxing people, some real boxing podcasts, not just from America. Get someone from the UK. Get someone from Mexico. Your boxing hotbeds. You've invested how many figures? Not 8, not 9, but 10 figures in Canelo Alvarez? That's the biggest star in Mexico. How about picking up a couple Mexican podcasts? Spanish language, and then you could translate them into English. How hard would that be? If you take somebody like, let's say, the Boxing Rant here in the States, or some of these guys over in the UK, there's several I can name. The platform's already built. The following's already there, okay? Now, let's take my show, for example. Most of you guys watching this or listening to this, whether you're watching the video or listening to the audio, you probably already subscribed to DAZN, or you will again once they start showing fights. So if they picked up my show, they're not going to pick up subscribers from that. But what they will do is further serve the subscribers they already have. So if you pick up T Street, you pick up the Boxing Rant, you pick up some Spanish language shows, UK shows, that serves the diehard fight fans that are subscribing to that platform when there is a lull in the boxing schedule or when there's a global pandemic. I've been saying this shit for about a year. Now everyone else, you're starting to hear it from other people too. Because now it's starting to hit people. Holy shit, there's no boxing on. I'm paying for DAZN. Let's see if DAZN has anything else to watch besides old Demetrius Andrade fights. Nope, they don't have shit. There's this Akin Barak guy. I don't know who the fuck these people are. I don't give a fuck. Unsubscribe. That's it. The people at the DAZN need to figure out what the fuck they're doing. All right, guys. A couple super chats I want to get to real quick. Let me get over here to the YouTube chat. Oh, we got a few of you guys. Thank you so much for the super chats, man. Let me make sure I got all you guys on here. All right, I'm just catching up with the chat here on YouTube. Whoa, we got a bunch of comments. Pietro with the super chat. Thank you so much, Pietro. He asked, which pay-per-view boxing event will be aired first after coronavirus? My prediction, Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia in September. Sorry if you guys don't think that's pay-per-view worthy, but that's probably what you're going to get. Ray Valero with the super chat. Thank you so much, Ray. He said, DAZN needs Montero. I agree with you, Ray. But again, this ain't about me. I don't give a shit. I mean, I'd love if they picked me up, but I want them to pick up a few actual boxing guys. Again, from here in the States, the UK, and Mexico. Hey, if they pick up a Japanese podcast, that'd be awesome too. But the boxing hotbeds, the three top ones are the USA, the UK, and Mexico. Pick up 3 podcasts from there, man. It's going to cost you nothing. The technology is already built in. My technology sucks today, but normally my technology is built in. I can take calls on my show. I've got video. I've got audio. They can pick my shit up. It'll cost them pennies on the dollar for what they're paying for these other guys that no one gives a shit about. That's what I'm saying, whether it's me or somebody else. One more super chat. Survive with the super chat pledge. Thank you so much. He says, DAZN needs to hire Montero. I appreciate it so much, guys. And once again, I agree. I do concur. All right, let's get over to our special guest today, guys. So I wanted to introduce this guy to the show. His name is Marty P Hill. Now, some of you guys may know who he is if you've been in the boxing game for a while. Some of you may not. But he owns a gym here in Atlanta, Sweet Science Boxing Club, that he's owned since 2009. So this is a small business owner that's getting hit right now in COVID, right? You think about the quarantine and everything else, the lockdown. It's affecting small businesses really, really badly. But what did I talk about last week when I talked about Boxing Monthly going away? I talked about boxing gyms struggling right now. I know of several gyms that have gone under that just started. Boxing gyms hang on by a thread. This guy has owned a boxing gym here in Atlanta for over a decade. Before working at the gym, he worked in the private sector as a senior recruiter, certified USA boxing coach, USA Boxing Masters Division chairperson. He's also a 3-time light heavyweight champ in the Masters Division, 2011, 2012, 2014. Graduate of the Emanuel Stewart Boxing Clinic. This man trained with Emanuel Stewart, the late, great Emanuel Stewart from my hometown, a wonderful human being, and one of the last true boxing teachers on planet Earth. Just a wonderful man, did so much for the sport. And this guy, Marty, trained with him. He puts on several tournaments here in Atlanta. One of them I'd like to fight in this summer if it still happens. We'll see. It was tentatively scheduled for August. We'll find out. But he recently had an all-female boxing tournament a couple months back, the Atlanta Classic. He's punched me in the head about 100 times, but it's okay. I've punched him back a few times too. Let's get him on the phone here and talk to Marty P Hill. What's up, Marty? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, Montero in boxing? How you doing today, brother? How's things going with you?
Well, if I can figure out this damn technology, man. We had everything set up, man, and everything works so beautifully, and then all of a sudden it takes a shit 5 minutes before I'm supposed to go live, but I think I got it figured out now.
There you go. Well, let me step in here and say one thing, because I want to make sure that all the Cronk Boxing people there in Detroit and the true Cronk Boxing fighters know I had an opportunity to bring Emmanuel down when we first opened up the gym in 2009. He had started doing some boxing clinics and wanted to give back to amateur boxing. He felt that at the time that he had a lot of knowledge, obviously, to try to give out and give back to a lot of the young boxing coaches and some of the young amateur boxers. So we were able to actually bring him into Atlanta for one of his very first clinics, and I don't think he got a chance to do any after that, because not long after that we ended up losing him. So, I didn't get a chance to say, per se train. I don't want anybody to get the impression that I was a Cronk boxer, if that's an very elite club, and very few have the opportunity to be able to say that. But I did get the chance to spend some good quality time with him in my own gym by bringing him into Atlanta to watch him do a boxing clinic with us. And then I was invited to come participate and watch when he was training Miguel Cotto for the Mayorga fight down in Hollywood, Florida, for a couple of days as well. So got a chance to spend some good quality time with him, and a tremendous amount of experience, and a tremendous experience that I would, never give back and never trade. Because I think what you just mentioned, we don't have a lot of those experienced senior coaches around anymore who've been through the amateurs and been through the pro ranks and have built fighters. You don't see that a lot, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what he did with Lennox Lewis, where a lot of people were throwing Lennox Lewis in the scrap heap after those 2 knockout losses, and he worked with Lennox and turned out to be more than just a Hall of Fame career, but an all-time great career. I mean, most people look at Lennox as a top 10, maybe top 5 heavyweight. Some people think he's the best ever. And then look what he did with Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, Vladimir went on a 10-year tear and owned the division for 10 years. And, I mean, Emmanuel worked with so many people. And I've spoken with a lot of folks like you that attended his clinics, that got to work with him, see him up close and personal. You know, unfortunately for me, I just wasn't high up enough in the boxing game yet, on the beat, to have really worked with him in the press, you know. But I remember once as a kid, they were doing some sort of, there was all these events to help get kids off the streets and, you know, that kind of thing. And there was basketball tournaments I'd go to, and there was some of the Detroit Pistons would be there. I remember Vinnie Johnson did one, and I'd go to that kind of stuff. And Manny Stewart was at one once, and that was the most interaction I had with him, but I was just a kid. But, man, I'm jealous of you, bro, that you got to work with him like that.
Well, I tell you what people don't like, and the funny thing about it is what people don't realize, you know, and some of the boxing purists may know, I'm sure you have seen it. You know, the irony of it is, you know, you mentioned Lennox, you mentioned Vladimir, you mentioned Vitaly, and you can go back and mention Prince Nassim Ahmed. You can go back, I mean, at the time, in 2009, you know, Emmanuel had worked with more world champions than any other trainers, and I don't think that's been surpassed. But here's what people don't know. You know, Tim Sugar Hill is Emmanuel's nephew.
Yep.
You know, he's the one that's keeping the Cronk name alive. And if you look at Adonis Stevens and you look at Tim is the one who corners and coaches and trains Tyson Fury. There's some clips out there where Emmanuel was predicting years back where Tyson Fury was a Cronk member for a little while, and Emmanuel was helping and working with him when he's coming out as amateur. So people think that you know, that Tyson just popped up on the scene and all of a sudden, you know, became a heavyweight contender. No, he's been around for a super long time. And Emmanuel had put his stamp of approval on him a long, long time ago. And if you watch his style of boxing, he has a classic Cronk, Emmanuel Stewart, Tim Sugar Hill style of fundamentally sound, good, long, tall, heavyweight boxing. Stay long, work at the end of your jab, stay light on your feet, keep your opponent away from you, keep him moving so you can't get stationary and get caught. You know, that's Emmanuel's style of heavyweight training, you know, for those tall, super heavyweight style guys. And Tyson has it. Good head movement, good feet. You know, I remember you told us at one of our clinics, he used to mention that Vladimir would spend hours just working on his footwork.
Yep.
Just hours just working on basic fundamental footwork. You know, and if you look at all those heavyweights that Emmanuel, and even the middleweights and the welterweights he trained, they all had superb fundamental footwork. And if you look at Tyson Fury, same thing. That staple is a fantastic jab. You look at Tyson, great jab. You know, so those fundamentals were there as well with Tyson. And ironically, when we had our clinic in Atlanta and Emmanuel came, a young heavyweight came from Alabama and participated in the clinic, a young Deontay Wilder. So we've got the pictures and we've got some photos of Emmanuel holding the mitts for a Deontay. So I tell you, the world is a strange place. And it always comes back full circle.
It always comes back full circle because boxing is such a small community. You know, I feel like globally the martial arts community is huge. You know, there's so many different martial arts, but obviously, you know, we're partial to boxing. But I feel like the community is so small and you just end up bumping into people over and over and over again. And there's always this 6 degrees of separation, right? And but, you know, let's talk about your gym, Marty, because, you know, I've trained there. I was trying to get back there this month, actually, or next month. And, you know, you do tournaments here in the Atlanta area. I just want to talk to you about how this COVID thing with the shutdown and everything is affecting your small business. You know, before you jumped on here, I was talking about DAZN. And right now, a bunch of people are dropping their subscription to DAZN because DAZN's not providing them with anything. There's no content that they're creating. And then there's so many different options, right? But with boxing gyms provide a community, especially for younger people, but also for people of all ages. And it's not like there's a boxing gym around every corner. They're rare things these days. And I think people don't understand the overhead costs associated with it. They're not cheap to run. There's a ton of costs associated. Can you just talk about that a little bit, how this thing has hurt you guys right now?
Yeah, Michael, sure. And I appreciate you asking that question. This coronavirus or the Corona-19 pandemic is impacting, not just the small business industry, but it's obviously having a direct impact on the fitness business because we were one of the first institutions that were forced by government, local and national mandates to shut down and close. So some of us have been closed or unoperational for a lot longer than some of these other places that are still actually operating. So to your point, if you take that as one equation into a business or a specific industry of boxing fitness, you're already usually in a struggling scenario as is before a pandemic like this happens. You usually have three levels of gyms or clubs, within that, under that boxing umbrella. You'll have the not-for-profit community club or the PAL, which is ran by that city or the police athletic league. Then you also have your not-for-profit organizations that may not be community centers. They may not be PAL-type programs, but they could be ran by an individual who just has a not-for-profit arm and can sustain. Then, of course, you have your private facilities, or let me go back a little bit. You have your franchise private facilities. Those can be your big box, title boxings or tap out fitnesses, right. Your UFC gyms, places like that are franchises that are owned and operated and ran by large conglomerates. Then you have people like myself who are LLC, sole proprietorship. We do this for the love. We do it for the passion. This is how we make our living. This is how we pay our bills. This is how we feed our families. And it's a struggle because right now we're non-operational. We have no clients coming in the doors. We're not able to obviously bring in new clients or new members, and we don't know when that's going to happen again. Someone like myself, I have an anomaly gym. I do thankfully all facets. We do the cardio boxing, the fitness boxing, kids boxing, masters boxing, which is adult competitive level boxing, and then I do boxing shows. I had a show here scheduled for April 18th. Here in my gym. That we were looking forward to that now has been canceled and been put on hold. So it's having a direct impact. We're all trying to stay positive and hope that the government steps in and helps us all in some shape, fashion, or form. But, we don't know what's going to happen. And what we want to do is encourage, and I'm sure you have a question for me next, but we want to encourage people out there that are listening how important it is to keep those memberships going if you can. If you are still gainfully employed and still generating revenue, even though you're unable to come into your gym right now, and it's not to the fault of your gym owner, your trainer, or your coach, it's what we've been mandated to do. But please trust and believe that you got to keep those funds going. Keep your EFTs going, keep your gym memberships going. Slide something on the door for them. Call your coaches, check on them, because to the point you mentioned earlier, if people don't do that when they return, as you mentioned about DAZN and everything with combat sports is taking a hit. Boxing clubs and boxing gyms will be the ones the most directly impacted because their pockets are not deep enough to sustain for 2 or 3 months, and they're going to be gone if the clients, customers, athletes, whoever comes in those gyms now, when they're open, please continue to do what you're doing while they're closed.
Yeah, I hear you, man, because I think what people don't understand is it's not like the mortgage or the rent or whatever stops. You still got to pay those bills. You still got to pay your utilities, the rent, everything else. So, hey guys, I can tell you because I've trained with Marty. I've been in the gym with him, and we've worked together. We've probably sparred damn near 100 rounds together, just the two of us. But, I've been in there when you were training kids. He's got kids in there. He's got all different levels of fighters. I know that you do a lot of, I guess would be called white-collar boxing too. Mm-hmm. You work with a lot of business people and stuff like that. I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, because that seems to be like a growing thing, like a master's division stuff. and then white collar boxing. But you kind of do everything. I mean, you've worked with all sorts, basically all levels. And I know that you've been out to LA, you've been to some of the gyms there, right? So you know everybody in the business, basically. But how do you keep things running right now as an independent guy versus, let's say, like LA Fitness? That's a national chain. They're going to be fine. You know, they're shutting down. It's a national thing. You talked about like Title Boxing, Tap Out, that kind of stuff. Those are national chains. They should be okay. But you as an independent operator, you can't go around right now and do private lessons. You can't do stuff like that. How do you stay afloat right now?
Well, the name of the game right now is just like being a good boxer, right? It's survival. Not every round's going to go your round, you know. And if you're training for a 3-round, 4-round bout, but you're scheduled for 10 or 12, and the only thing you've been doing is training enough miles, hitting the bags, and only enough sparring for a 2 or 3 round fight, when round 5 and round 6 comes, you're going to be ass out of luck, right? So that's the same mentality you better have as a small business owner. Days like this are always going to come. Whether it's a bad weather storm that comes in and shuts you down for 2 or 3 weeks, you know, it could be a snowstorm. You know, a tornado could blow into a community and damage property and shut you down. You know, this time around it happened to be an illness and a pandemic. But having been a business owner for 10 years, you got to automatically already know, you know, once every couple of years you're going to be faced with something. You know, have we ever been faced with something like this? No. Obviously, it's something none of us have ever experienced. You know, I'm 45 years old, and my time on this planet, I've never seen anything like this, not a pandemic of this nature. So you got to keep reinventing yourself. You know, we're doing a lot of online training, going live on our social media feeds, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, you know, our YouTube pages. So I'm still coming in daily to the gym, still working almost a full day of shooting live videos to my customers who are still part of our business. You know, they have a receivable that we're delivering to them so they can stay upbeat and stay consistent with their workouts, not just because they're clients of ours. You know, we want them to stay healthy, build their immune systems, and keep moving. So we're giving them that back, and not just our customers, but we're posting that to anybody that's open to it. I also shoot personal daily boxing training tips for the experienced boxer, the competitive boxer. You know, for those that want to work on some technique and work on some things, you know, I'm posting something daily that says, hey, look at this, try this, work on that. So when you do return back to your gyms, you should be better than when you left. So fortunately, I'm actually pretty busy enough to have a lot of things to be working on the business, because I'm not having to work in the business. Because as you know, you come in the gym, you see me, I'm sparring with the guys, I'm holding the mitts, I'm, you know, running the classes, you know, I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the stuff. I do everything in my business. I'm a sole proprietor. So this is giving me time to build up content, you know, in other areas that I haven't had the chance to do that. So I'm taking advantage of this time to hopefully get ahead of the curve when we return for things that I should have been doing almost 3 or 4 years ago. You know, so it keeps me motivated, keeps me busy, you know, and that's what I would be encouraging my other colleagues in this business to be finding something else to be reinventing themselves in during this time. So their businesses will be further along than where they were when we had to temporarily shut our doors.
That's a great point, because I see a lot of boxing gyms and stuff where they're not posting anything. And I see you've been posting almost daily boxing videos, just basics, just, you know, boxing 101 stuff, whether it's working a double end bag, whether it's shadow boxing, whatever it is. And I think that's great. I think that, you know, keeping material going, keeping it out there, that's smart. Again, I talked about at the top of the show, PBC is doing an interview with a different fighter every week. Today it was Errol Spence, just to put out some content. I know that Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, he's been doing that over in the UK. He's been putting out videos. I think people need to stay busy right now and keep content flowing. Just for boxing gyms in general. I mean, and Marty, I've seen, like, you've driven kids to tournaments and stuff. I've seen you do that kind of thing. Running a gym, being a trainer, getting involved like that, it's not just a job, right? It's actually a lifestyle. Is it not? It's like a way of life, because I see you doing things outside of the gym hours where, again, you're driving kids to tournaments. You know, you're meeting with their families. I've seen you do that kind of stuff. Is that part of the reason why it's so hard to keep it running? And is that part of the reason why so many people don't want to do it? Because it's more than just a job.
Yeah, no, Mike, that's a great question. And you know what? This is what I tell people when they ask me, oh man, you know, how do you still love what you're doing, and do you enjoy what you're doing, and how did you get into it? Or, hey, man, I want to open up a boxing gym. I want to do what you're doing. And I tell them, I say, hey, look, this is a relationship. This is a marriage. I just recently got engaged, after 45 years last May. And people go, well, man, how did you wait so long? I said, I was married to a business, and I'm still married to this business. This business still comes, okay, let my fiance hear that, it still comes first. And that's, kind of, what got my fiance, to the point where she is my fiance because of that exact reason. Hey, this comes first, and it takes a lot. I'm away from my family,
to her credit,
from my friends.
Not to interrupt, but to her credit, number one, she's a beautiful, wonderful lady, but she was right there helping out at the tournament in February, right? So there you go. Just like mine, I found a soldier too, man, where she's backing me up with my boxing stuff the same way. So anyway, sorry, I just had to put that out there, man. When you have a partner like that, you got to keep her.
Yeah, I mean, like yours as well. I mean, you have to. When we ran into you guys there at the Gervonta Davis fight here in Atlanta, she's right there by your side. And a lot of people don't understand that because I'm gone, me personally, from 7 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night every day. And then if it's a boxing tournament on the weekend, I'm gone. So I'm not able to participate in a lot of things. I can't go to the movies in the evening or do dinners, or when we're hosting tournaments, I'm staying at the hotel away from my family. So it's not just a commitment on me, it's a commitment for everybody involved. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. When you're a small business owner, whether it be a restaurant or, a clothing store, some of those things play into it. But you're right. When it's the boxing, I'm with my fighters at the weigh-in, at the check-in, at the midday coaches meeting. And all this happens before we even box. So a Saturday could be 7 o'clock in the morning getting to a weigh-in. We might not box till 5 p.m. that evening. So I'm still there keeping my boxer motivated, keeping them energizing, keeping them, focused. And then to turn around right back, and that could be a tournament Saturday and Sunday, to turn around right back and be back in the gym on a Monday. So what I tell people is this, like any relationship, passion gets you in it, but love is going to make you stay. You have to have a great amount of passion to even get in the door. But when times get hard and times become challenging, it's going to be the absolute love for it that's going to make you go through these tough times. And if you don't love this sport, whether it be competing at it or trying to run a business at it, it will destroy you. And I think any coach, like you said, I've been at Wild Card, been around Emmanuel, met Freddie. I've talked to a bunch of people in this business, and anyone that's really ingrained in this will tell you the same thing, from the promoter down to the boxer to the gym owner. You better love it, because if you don't love it, it will leave a really bad taste in your mouth. So that's what I would give anybody. The first thing about anyone trying to get into business: have a passion, hone your skills for it. Then when you know that you truly love it, then you get married to it. Like any good relationship, because it's going to have its good days and its bad days.
Yeah, there's definitely, boxing will give you bad days, even if
more bad days.
Yeah, man, I hear that, brother. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of bad days in boxing. It is definitely like a marriage with a lot of arguments, but really great sex. So you have, your arguments, you hate each other, but then you have the great makeup sex. Probably the best makeup sex there is. So that's how you stay addicted to it. But, you talked about the passion, the love. I share that same love with the sport, obviously, that you do. And when I moved here to Atlanta, part of it was because me and my fiance, we wanted to target, an affordable city that's growing, has a good market. But I looked at Atlanta as an untapped resource for boxing. So I wanted to talk to you about this because you've known the commission people here for a while. You've been in Atlanta forever. What is the problem with Atlanta in boxing? Gervonta Davis fought here at the end of last year. You were there. You saw the crowd. The place was packed. They were passionate about seeing him. A lot of the fighters, particularly the Black American fighters, a lot of them have homes here or hang out down here. You mentioned Deontay coming to your gym and working out well before he was Deontay, right? He comes down here. I know Gervonta has a home here. He has a daughter here. Why can't we see more shows in Atlanta? What's the problem? Why don't the shows come here? I just don't understand.
Well, I think the biggest reason why is this, and I think you kind of keyed in on it. I mean, boxing is a very unique sport, right? And you got to have people that have really deep pockets that are willing to invest in something that usually there's no net return on. And let's be honest, I mean, Atlanta is a red hot city. You know, it's red hot for conventions. Atlanta doesn't lack for high level entertainment convention or draws, right? You got to think. The Final Four was supposed to be here right now. Just had the Super Bowl here last year. We just had the NCAA football championship. You know, so when you look at that grand scheme of things, Atlanta is a hotbed for attractions, right? And because of that, we don't have that many convention centers. We don't have a casino. So there are not that many ancillary places that you can take a very large event and put it in unless you're willing to invest a boatload of money. So let's not forget with the Gervonta Davis, who came in with a boatload of money, it made that thing happen, right? And the pure boxing community had been saying for years that it was going to take Floyd, it was going to take Oscar, it was going to take Bob, someone with a lot of deep pockets, and that was looking to more so build an audience and not worry about the ticket sales and making revenue, to come into like the State Farm or the Phillips Arena or the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and fill that up with the boxing audience, knowing they probably weren't going to get much of a return right now, but they could build something for the future. You know, if we had casinos here or other little small convention centers that had other ancillary items around it, you know, i.e. Jersey, the boardwalk, or, you know, you got LA, you got Vegas, you know, you got other things that draw those people in, not just the boxing. And I think that's a big reason why you don't see big boxing here. Now, the challenge with little boxing is that, I mean, Atlanta it's a poppin' city. People want to see not the up and comer, but the already established, right? And you know, you're not gonna be on the phone for forever and it's kind of disappointing because with this next level of Olympics coming up, you know, we had a good crop of Olympic level athletes getting ready to come out of the amateurs,
right,
who are getting ready to be the next generation of some very elite level pros that we're going to need venues like in Atlanta and Texas and these other places who don't get a lot of the mid-level stuff. You can come build an audience and build a fan base here. And I think after this Olympics, you're going to see some of the Eddie Hearns and some of the guys who are bubbling up to that next level of super promoter coming to places like Atlanta and trying to find venues and doing things. And it's sad, but this coronavirus is going to help set that back because we were kind of already having a little bit of activity with some local promoters from other states coming in and doing things consistent in clubs and other places. But now that's even been put on pause. But we were kind of getting there. But it's also a football town. Always is, always will be.
Yeah, I noticed like college football is really big here. Like people like, what is it, is it the Bulldogs?
Georgia Bulldogs, yeah, right now. Go Dogs.
I see that flag everywhere. I just see that flag on people's car. And I'm like, yo, there's a pro team too. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta has, the Falcons have that new stadium downtown, which is awesome, by the way. I went to one of those games. Holy shit, that stadium's amazing. But I don't get it, man, because, you know, I've been to smaller cities that have more of a boxing following. I think, though, it starts at the community level. And who knows, maybe I can help get involved in the commission here and try to bring some small stuff here. But the money's definitely here, and the media's here. Atlanta has a media presence. It's never going to be LA. It's never even going to be New York. But it's definitely a player. It's in the top 5 media market-wise in America. It's got to be right around there. And again, you've had an Olympics here. You've had a Super Bowl here. I think they've actually had a couple Super Bowls here. Right? There's
we just had the most recent 2 years ago. The Super Bowl Super Bowl last year was here.
So that was right when I moved here.
Patriots Super Bowl. Yeah.
And I think wasn't there one here in the 90s? Maybe I'm mistaken that with the Olympics or something. But I know that there's a lot of film production, TV production. I'm just like, man, I don't understand. I know Top Rank has talked about bringing Terrence Crawford here. I think Terrence Crawford would crush it here. I think he could do a good crowd here. For the life of me. And I told Tim Smith this at PBC. I was like, dude, bring Deontay Wilder to Atlanta. Do you not understand how big he would be here? And he goes, Mike, I know, but the money, blah, blah, blah. So they've actually talked about if Deontay ever gets a title back and he has a mandatory, maybe that fight could happen here. But I thought his mandatory fight against Dominic Breazeale that was an opportunity where you could have brought that fight to Atlanta, could have did something. I just think people always look at the big shows. They got to bring the big stars and the big shows, and I get that. You got to bring your Gervonta Davis, your Deontay Wilder, but it starts at the club level. They need some promoter with a 5-year plan needs to come here and put on regular shows. In the Los Angeles area, Thompson Boxing is a club-level promoter out there in Southern California, maybe an hour or so outside of L.A. In the Inland Empire. They do a show once or twice a month out there at the same hotel. And I've actually done commentary. I've called some of those fight cards live. They've hired me to do that before. So I've been at those shows a few times and just seen they always do a crowd. Now, it's only 500 people or something like that, but it's always sold out. They do a crowd. They do local shows. They bring up prospects there. And that's the kind of thing that someone has to start here. But they have to be willing to put in the money because you're not going to make money doing that shit for at least the first 5 years. But down the road, you can actually make money. Thompson Boxing does all right. They discovered Timothy Bradley. They've brought certain guys up before that became champions. I just think, man, someone's got to do that here. Remember when Evander Holyfield did his promotion for a while? They headquartered that in New York. I could never understand why Evander Holyfield, you're going to do a promotional company. Why are you taking that shit to New York? I thought that was a blown opportunity. They could have built something here. Anyway, I could rant about that for ages, man. I want to make sure I've hit on everything with you that I wanted to talk about.
Like I said before, I think,
go ahead.
Not to cut you off, I think with what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Again, I think we were kind of on the cusp of that. I think eventually we'll see that. I mean, obviously, we saw the turnout and the Gervonta fight, and that was that's a State Farm arena, right? That's a huge arena, and he almost, packed it out. I mean, you were there, I was there. It started off slowly. People didn't come in to see the prelims, but by the time he got there, I mean, it was a packed house, which surprised a lot of us. So it can happen, and I agree. It's got to start with the grassroots. But I think the other challenge is you can't compare Atlanta to New York and LA's and the Texases because, if you look at the per capita of registered licensed pro boxers in those states compared to the number that we have here in Atlanta, Georgia, it's probably about 60 or 70% difference, if not higher than that.
Probably higher.
So, I've always said that you got to get one of these, a B team. You get a top-ranked B team. You get a Golden Boy B team. You get a Floyd B team, come in, you get a local promoter here, you bring some of those guys, but those guys build some of their fighters here in Atlanta, build a stable, get them active, put some money into it, and then you would have something. Because at the end of the day, the product is still the product, which is what? The fighting, right? The boxing. The boxing got to be of high caliber. And if you don't have a good product, you can have an arena and you can be putting shows on every week, but nobody wants to see, somebody who can't fight, or see someone who's got real potential, to the next level. They got to be able to see that. You got to be able to promote that. You got to put them on the radio. You got to put them on the TV. You got to get them on reality. All these different facets go with that. And as you know better than anybody, building a fighter in the gym is one thing. Building him outside the gym is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. This city look, I've only lived here about a year and a half. Atlanta way better than me, obviously. But from what I've seen here, it's a very white-collar city. It's a city with a lot of money. And I know that there's got to be fighters here. There's got to be kids that they could tap into and build. But as you mentioned, it's such a big football community. Is this ACC, I think, college football? Is this ACC?
Well, you got ACC and SEC here. But Let me go back really quick just to touch on that. Just think of Vegas. Most Vegas fighters aren't born and raised in Vegas. They do what? They move to Vegas because that's where the fights are, right? They move to Vegas because they know that's likely them getting on a fight card somewhere at some casino at some point because that's where the activity is. So, to that point that you're getting ready to mention, you can do it here, and most of these guys, and girls both, have homes, or they come here and travel and take, advantage of our nightlife, but you got to draw some of them to be here and then have an outlet for them to participate in something. It's not going to be grown with homegrown Atlanta fighters as much as we would love it to be, and that's what we've tried to do for years. Now it's about bringing in the horsepower, having an event, having venues, having a promotions, and drawing these top-level amateurs who live in New York and live in L.A. and live in Houston and live in wherever they live to come to Atlanta and say, hey, I'm going to move to Atlanta and I'm going to be part of this promotion and fight in Atlanta, my first 10 or 15 fights, and draw a crowd and an audience here in Atlanta. That's what will build this thing up. Not necessarily doesn't have to be a local kid. That would be great, obviously, but just having a good quality fighter could be just as beneficial and move it along a lot faster.
That's a great point, man. That's a really, really great point. And yeah, if you had the right platform and you took a group of kids and kind of build up their careers here, now eventually they're going to have to leave the nest. They're going to have to fight in LA. They're going to have to fight in Las Vegas. But, that's where maybe they're going to win their titles. But they come back here and do a title defense, or something like that. That's how you build up that following. And the thing with Atlanta, people call it Black Hollywood. Yes, of course, it is. But there's a lot of other communities here. I've noticed there's a large Mexican-American community here. There's a huge, I didn't realize this, the second biggest Korean community in America is in Atlanta. Who the hell knew that? Mm-hmm. There's a large Vietnamese community. There's all these different communities here. There's even an Eastern European community here and everything else. So you can market to different types of fighters. It's not just you got to have. I think when people think Atlanta, it's ignorant to just think it's got to be black fighters or something like that. Yes, that's the biggest demographic here with all the money and everything. Sure, but there's all these other different immigrant groups, and there's a ton of people moving here from New York and from LA, like myself, assholes like me driving up the cost of the homes here. Sorry, but
well, right. And then to that point, look at Oscar. That's what Oscar did. With his what was the first thing? The LA fights. He focused on he focused on the Latin and the Mexican community there in LA. And Victor, I remember watching Victor Ortiz and all those guys come up, and that's all he put. And that's all. That's of course what people have been. I love Oscar, but that's been the biggest ding on him. Well, he's only signing Latin American or Mexican American fighters and Mexican fighters. Well, he's got an outlet for that. He's got a demographic that's watching.
He's got a built-in demographic base, right?
A built-in demographic, yeah. It's a brilliant business model. It was brilliant, and it worked. Look at all those guys that came out of that. Victor Ortiz, and you can name a bunch of guys.
Yeah, there's a million of them.
I think, a million. I think that might have been even on USA at one time. So yeah.
They had what they call it, LA Fight Club. That was more recent,
right? That's
where I think Jojo Diaz might have fallen on some of those cards, guys like that. So you have to have, and the thing is, they have that built-in community there, and I get it. The community here, the built-in community, is going to be the Black Hollywood community. I get that. That's where the money and the investing could come from. If you had a couple of these actors pool together and put some real money up together, you really could build something here. But Marty, we could talk about this all day, my man. I hope you guys are staying safe, man. Before I let you go, because I'm going to jump off here in a minute, let everyone know where they could find your stuff, where they can find you on social and find out more about your gym and what you do.
Yeah, no, Mike, I appreciate that. Again, this is Sweet Science Fitness Boxing Club in Atlanta, Georgia. Our website is sweetsciencefitness.com. You can follow us on Instagram with the same tag, Sweet Science Fitness Boxing, Atlanta, Georgia. Facebook, same, Sweet Science Fitness. YouTube page as well. So follow us, please. Support us. But more so important, if you're in the boxing community, if you're a boxing fan, I think Mike touched on it a lot. Stay with this. Stay with the community. Support your local boxing gym. Support your local boxing clubs. Check on your coaches. Make sure they're staying active. Make sure they're staying healthy. A lot of boxing coaches are up there in age, so make sure they're staying healthy. But support these gyms, keep these gyms open, keep the sport of boxing around. So when the time does come, when the doors open back up, we can all rush back in and pick right back up where we left off. Boxing was red hot before this happened. TV, events every week. We were really moving to the next level of boxing. Boxing was back, and let's make sure we keep it that way, when we put this thing behind us.
Coach Marty Hill, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Let's do it again sometime, brother.
Thanks, Mike. I look forward to punching you in the face until the thing's behind us.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to get a couple counters back at you, Coach. All right, Coach. Have a good one.
Take care, buddy.
All right, man. All right, guys. Coach Marty Hill. Yes, he has definitely punched me in the face at least 100 times. Yeah. He's fast. He's very fast. He's definitely faster than me. Okay, so look, man, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I saw some of you guys on the chat asking for more about what Marty does. Again, he does a little bit of everything in boxing. Yes, he has worked with pro fighters. I saw a couple of you guys asking that. He's worked with high-level amateurs. He's competed at a high level as an amateur himself. And look, guys, the reason why I wanted to bring Marty on, not only because he's a friend of mine and I've worked with him a lot, but he's a guy who's on the front lines, okay? So I bring on other people in the media. I've brought on, you know, other, I guess, peers of mine on that side of the street, if you will. I wanted to bring on somebody running a gym and not doing it in LA where there's 100 gyms and LA is boxing crazy and there's almost a built-in community for it. I wanted to talk to somebody and present to you guys somebody who lives in quote-unquote middle America, Atlanta, running a boxing gym. I can count the number of boxing gyms in all of Metro Atlanta with one hand, okay? It's not even 5. I'm talking, when I say boxing gym, I mean dedicated solely to boxing. What you find here in Atlanta, to me, the way Atlanta is built, it's kind of like a giant suburb. There is a downtown and everything, and it's pretty live and happening. I actually enjoy downtown Atlanta, but Atlanta's built like a giant suburb, which is kind of how most American cities are built. You got LA, New York, Chicago, and that's about it. Everything after that is a giant suburb. It's just the way American cities are built, especially newer cities, which Atlanta is. I understand it goes back and everything, but Atlanta being a big city, that's a newer thing. You don't have a lot of boxing-only dedicated gyms. What you get is a place like, I think Tap Out Fitness or something like that, where they'll have a little corner, a corner of the gym that's boxing, right? They quote unquote boxing. It's basically an MMA gym. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's an MMA gym where it will say MMA, Muay Thai, wrestling, boxing. They'll have one guy there who boxed a little bit for a couple of months and he'll say, I'm a boxing coach. And they'll have a little corner in that gym where they do boxing, right? And maybe there's a couple of heavy bags, double end bags in the area to skip rope. And that's it. The rest of the gym is mats to do Muay Thai stuff and judo and all that shit, because that's what most of the younger people in middle America, the suburban communities, the white collar communities, middle class communities, that's what they're into and that's what they're doing. You don't find outside of LA, Vegas, Houston, Dallas, okay, Chicago, outside the cities, not even Chicago doesn't even have that many gyms. Outside of those boxing hotbeds, you just don't find many gyms in most cities. So I wanted to show you guys, just give you that perspective from somebody who's on the front lines, trying to run a gym, works with a lot of kids. There's 2 kids he actually has right now that, you know, I've been in there and I've seen a lot of those kids spar and train. There's 2 of them that look really good, like they have a future, like 2 of them, 2 Mexican-American kids that he's training right now. And he's really taken under his wing and he's really trying to mentor them. Just being in that world in a place like Atlanta, which is not a boxing hotbed. So I hope you guys enjoyed some of that insight, man. Let's see. If any of you guys want to get on the phone here, have at it, call in. I saw somebody jumped on the line earlier, then dropped off. If you want to call back, do that. But if not, no worries, man. Next week, we're going to have Mark from Unrivaled Boxing Talk here on the show. I think that'll be fun. Mark calls in a lot, and he has great calls. Really knows his stuff when it comes down to boxing history. So I think that will be fun to have him on. If you guys could think of any particular subjects you want us to hit, whether it's boxing history or modern boxing stuff, let me know. Drop a comment here and let me know, or DM me, whatever it is. Let me jump over to the phones here. We got a call. Ask and you shall receive. 447, you're on the line. Go.
Hey, Mike. Sorry, do you know what? I'm really unprepared right now because I didn't expect to get on that quickly. So I saw a really, really good tweet earlier. Found it now. Sorry, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped in like that.
No, it's all good.
So the tweet was, would the results of these fights be different if they were fought 2 to 5 years, depending on fight earlier? So there was Jones Tarver, Hagler Leonard, Floyd Pacquiao, Golovkin Canelo, Vlad versus AJ and Fury, Holyfield Lewis, Holyfield Tyson. So I want each of those. It's hard to remember. So I'll go Jones Tarver first. Go ahead.
Every single one of those would be different. Boxing is
You
not
reckon?
every single one of them would be different.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
timing is everything. I mean, it's
True.
sometimes it's who, it's what, it's where, all that, but it's also when. So Jones Tarver, are we talking about the first one or the rematch?
Yeah, I think this is either or. I suppose. I think this is number one.
Yeah, if that happened a couple years earlier, before Roy Jones used some artificial enhancers to move up in weight and destroyed his body, you have to favor Jones in his absolute prime before he bulked up in weight, pretty big over Tarver. I mean, Tarver, good fighter, okay? But other than those win over Jones, and a lot of people thought that he won the first fight, what else did he do? I mean, he had a couple of good wins, right? But, I mean, Jones was just a much better fighter. But let's hit a few more of those on your list.
Okay, Hagler-Leonard is next.
I was going to say destroyed. He would never have destroyed Leonard, but he would have been much better early on. I think what Leonard did by waiting out Hagler, and look, let's give Leonard props. I mean, he was a welterweight fighting a middleweight, so he deserves credit. He did, imagine Floyd Mayweather fighting for the middleweight championship. That's what Leonard did. Now, yes, it was an older version of Hagler. He waited him out. I think that's what Canelo basically tried to do with Golovkin. Had they fought earlier, you got to favor Hagler. And a lot of people still feel Hagler beat Leonard. What else?
Next one is Floyd Pacquiao.
Oh, dude, yeah, that might be the biggest one on your list. I mean, you go back 5 years. That fight happened in 2015. So if you go back to 2010, and especially if you do that fight at 140, but even if it's at 47, dude, that is a 50-50 fight. And Floyd knew it. And I'm not saying Floyd ducked. He avoided. He was being a businessman. He didn't duck Pacquiao because he ended up fighting him. But 5 years earlier, that's a pick'em fight.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that could have been a great trilogy. And I think if there were 3 fights, Floyd might have won 2 of them.
I completely agree. I think
possibly would have got the best of him at one of those occasions.
I think the first fight could have looked like Canelo Golovkin, where it would have been a very close, debatable decision, maybe a draw, a majority draw or a split decision that had fans arguing. Then the second fight, let's say Floyd gets the benefit of the doubt in the first fight and wins a decision that most people don't feel he won. Then in the second fight, Pacquiao wins legitimately. Then in the third fight, Mayweather makes adjustments and wins definitively. The tragedy of that era, of the Mayweather-Pacquiao era, is that fight didn't happen 3 times. It should have been a trilogy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Next one on the list. Sorry, I'm taking up loads of time. Golovkin, Canelo, you've already sort of covered that.
Yeah,
and I know
Golovkin doesn't just beat Canelo. Golovkin probably stops Canelo if it's 5 years before. But even 2 years before, he would be favored probably to stop Canelo late. Definitely it'd be a wide decision win. Klitschko versus Joshua, he knocks out Joshua if that's a couple years prior. Knockout, not decision, knockout.
Yeah, definitely.
And Klitschko in his prime against Fury, I understand that Fury's style was always going to give Klitschko problems. And there's a lot of people out there that feel that Fury would always beat Vlad. I think you go back several years to when Emmanuel Stewart was in Klitschko's corner. If he had Manny Stewart in his corner against Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury was doing VADA testing, it was, the clean guy that we just saw against Wilder, I would favor a prime Klitschko by decision. Now, my opinion might change if we see more of Tyson Fury and let's say Fury beats Wilder the third time, and then he beats Joshua, and then he beats Usyk, and then he retires. That puts him in a special, special place, and then I'll think differently of him. But right now, I'd favor Vladimir Klitschko by very close, possibly, split decision or something like that over Fury, prime for prime.
Oh, on that, I think Vlad was not used to fighting taller fighters. He wasn't used to fighting guys that move as well as Fury. I understand all those arguments. I do think he was a different beast only 3 years beforehand. So, I don't know. You know how Emmanuel Stewart used to set fire under his ass? Vlad only started if he someone shouting him, tell him you're losing this fight.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit right there, but I think what you were talking about was how Manny Stewart would light a fire under Vladimir's ass. He did the same thing with Lennox Lewis. He did that. I remember he did it with Jermaine Taylor a couple times. He'd do that with guys that he didn't feel were giving it 100% and were taking it a little too easy. Guys like Vladimir, guys like Lennox were so much better than most of the guys that they fought that they could kind of get away with playing it safe. They didn't have to bite down and fight. And when they were forced to bite down and fight, you saw what they really had inside them. I think you saw a little bit of that with Vladimir in his fight with Joshua. In the first fight with, or the only fight with Fury, I just feel like he wasn't, he was in shape and everything, but he wasn't able to make those adjustments. He didn't have the best corner work in that fight. I really think that going into that rematch, he had 12 rounds of footage to sit down and look at. One thing about Vladimir Klitschko and the Cronk Gym, they look at tape. And Klitschko would sit down and just for hours with Manny Stewart and watch fights and break things down. And I just think possibly, let's say Vlad and Tyson Fury fight 3 times. That's going to be a split trilogy as well, where both guys are going to get W's in that. You know what I mean? But I got a few other calls, man, that I want to jump to. Good stuff, though.
Sorry, there was 2 more.
Oh, okay, let's hit them real quick.
Holyfield Lewis and Holyfield Tyson, and I'll leave you to wrap it up.
Klitschko Lewis and Holyfield Tyson. Okay, all right, bro.
Holyfield Lewis, Holyfield Tyson.
Holyfield Lewis, Holyfield Tyson. So Holyfield would always beat Tyson, always. Didn't matter how many times they fought or when they fought. Yeah, Holyfield has a mental edge and a toughness, and in the end, I feel better overall skill set than Tyson to go a hard 12 rounds. He just is a better built fighter at his best to do that. I think Holyfield, of course, Tyson could pull any of those fights out, of course, but I would have always favored Holyfield over Tyson. I would always favor Lewis over Holyfield. So those fights, timing didn't mean shit. All right. Is that all of them?
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot, bro.
That's all. Nice one. See ya.
Bye. All right. Let's jump to a couple other calls here, guys. We got a couple calls here late on the show. 619, you're on TNC. Go.
619 Montero.
What's up, Gail?
Check it in. Hey. All right. I got your ass off for the day.
All right.
I will be on TMZ live tonight talking about Floyd Mayweather's misbehaving daughter.
Holy shit. All right. What channel is TMZ even on? Because I don't watch. Is that on Fox?
Oh, who the hell? It depends on the market. You know, they want it all over the damn place. They are also on YouTube alongside Montero on boxing with your various videos and so forth. Yeah, very random. They contacted me. If for those of you who watch that sort of gossip trash, which I admit, I do watch it. It's a train wreck. Don't we all love it, right? They hit me up based on my Twitter traffic, and they have a peanut gallery of folks from around the country who weigh in on their various stories. And they chatted about Floyd's daughter, you know.
Oh, that's the kind of stuff they love to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, well, hell yeah. Yeah, apparently she stabbed some guy, ex-boyfriend.
Some YouTuber guy. Yeah, I'd never heard of him. I have no idea who it is.
Me neither. Yeah, I don't have time for that. But come on, honey. Ain't no man on the planet worth getting that upset about.
No one on the planet's worth that getting upset about. Yeah. You know what? I got to stop.
Come on.
I was going to say, I got to stop bashing TMZ on Twitter so much. I didn't realize they read boxing writers' Twitter feeds. Huh.
They are reading it. Why the heck they plucked me out? Who the hell knows? And they didn't really, because you don't know what you're going to talk about until they tell you like 15 minutes before the show runs, airs live. But yeah, damn, didn't that girl learn anything from her dad?
Like
you
daughter,
don't fight
like
for
father?
anything but money.
Yeah, apparently
get on
not.
the money team.
I don't know. Look,
stuff.
Floyd has had a rough 2020. We all have had a rough 2020, but Floyd has had an especially rough 2020. And this one,
I mean, with all seriousness, plenty of people end up with misbehaving kids through no fault of their own. You know, when you have multiple kids and they all receive the same upbringing, and only one acts up, it wasn't you, it was them.
That's a good point.
So.
That's a good point.
She's quite the piece of work, but
is her name really Yaya?
Ayana.
Oh, okay. So Yaya is just a nickname. Okay, because I saw Yaya Mayweather, and I'm like, did he really name his kid? That tells you how much I know. I that's why TMZ is not going to call me. I have no idea who any of these people are. I don't pay attention. But that's awesome. I'll look for you.
All laughing aside, from my perspective, my perch as somebody who has taught journalism and was at one time a legit journalist, we can laugh at TMZ all we want, but A, they do their homework. B, you know this, they sit down there on the courthouse in LA and other cities, and they have people that watch for papers being filed, and that's how they catch, people behaving badly. They broke the news about Kovalev's DUIs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did.
Being filed.
They did.
When they break news, it's not the National Enquirer. It's always sourced, and 99 times out of 100, they are right and they are accurate, and that's why they never get sued for this stuff either.
That's a good point.
They dot their I's and cross their T's. Not like I'm advertising for all of you to go spend an hour of your day wasted watching TMZ, but when you see a news report sourced to TMZ, it's legit, folks.
I've heard that from people who know what they're talking about. So, they do. Yeah. Look, I don't necessarily follow what they report on, but the stuff that they report on, they are very well sourced. So, look, I'll try to find I'll ask Tiff if she knows when TMZ airs. If not, I'll look for it on YouTube, and I'll tweet that out.
I'll send you a link or something.
Just DM me a link. And I'll check that out.
I will brag. I did make Harvey laugh his ass off, so that's my accomplishment for the day. This is how we now measure our days, Michael, under quarantine. Did I make Harvey Levin laugh? Great. Job done for the day.
Great job. As long as you don't make Harvey Weinstein laugh, you're good. You made the right Harvey laugh.
With that, I'm dropping the mic.
All right, All right, Gail. Thanks for calling. I got a couple more here I'm going to jump to. All right, guys. So Gail Falkenthal on TMZ. How cool is that? We'll have to check that out, man. Let's jump to another call. 404, you're on TNC. Go.
Hey, Mike. I just wanted to kind of hear your observations on something I noticed. I was at the Gervonta Davis fight. You were there, and I heard you and Marty talking about bringing kind of mid-market fights to Atlanta, not necessarily up-and-comers, but not super fights, just kind of having established fighters have fights in Atlanta. And an observation I made was that, the society people who were at that fight weren't boxing people like you see in LA and Las Vegas. It was like rappers and ballers and stuff. And do you think, having the culture crowd there, rappers and NBA players, do you think that's better for bringing boxing to the Atlanta market, or do you think we need to see more boxing folks at the live shows?
That's a great question. Is this Peter?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Peter, I thought that was you, man. I just remember the voice. What's up, man? Guys, this is another guy that's punched me in the head a few times talking on the phone here. Good to hear from you, man. Look, I think, in a market like Atlanta, what's going to come first is the society people, as you say. Those people are the, what do they call them, influencers, and they're going to talk about the fight. They're going to hashtag shit and post their selfies on Instagram and their little videos from ringside and stuff. That's going to get people talking. That's going to generate interest. That's going to get kids interested and maybe build boxing people, create boxing people. The thing is, if you have one event like that, once a year, once every 2-3 years, that's not enough. You need those people to be out attending those sorts of events regularly. That's how you build a community. So just having a one-off, that's just not going to get it done, man. You mentioned going to fights in New York, LA, even somewhere like Chicago, Philly, some of those older towns where there's an established boxing history. You're going to find boxing people at those events. There's not many boxing people in Atlanta. And, most of them are transplants like you and I, You're from up north and you moved down here, right? So you got to have those influencers and those, I hate using that damn word, but it's true. You got to have those people attending the events, but you got to have more events, consistent events, and that's how you build a boxing community.
For sure.
Yeah, man. So when are you going to get back in there and get back to training? You got any plans to get back in there?
Once we're allowed back in.
Hell yeah, bro. All right. Well, I'll probably see you there this summer because it was my plan to get in there.
Good talking to you.
All right, cool, man.
All right.
Well, dude, call in anytime, bro. All right? All right, guys. That was Peter, another guy who's punched me in the head. We're going to one more call here real quick. 773, you're on TNC. Go.
How y'all doing?
Doing good. How you doing?
Pretty good. You know what? I was looking at a Instagram post today of Vladimir Klitschko. Did you see that latest one he posted?
No, actually, I haven't been on Instagram at all today yet. So
it's pretty interesting. It's a magazine cover of a title saying "Him Down," and it says "Broken Man." They're pretty much writing him off, saying after his loss or something, one of his losses, he's done. He's a broken man. This and that. And what he do? He went on to break the record or hold the record for most title defenses. I don't know what it is, but he just never got his due. Every time you talk about him, oh, he's boring, and oh, he was in an easy generation, blah, blah, blah. He just never got the credit he deserves, in my opinion. I felt like I consider him the best heavyweight of all time. And people would say, oh, that's Muhammad Ali, blah, this and that. It's kind of crazy. I think that's just an Eastern European thing. I don't think they get the credit they deserve. They kind of fight for everything they have. That's why I think someone like Aegis Kleiman, that
Please.
manager, yeah, man, he's just been so many opportunities to see us high-level boxing, the best boxing in the world. Guys like Lomachenko, Kovalev, Vesputin, a whole gang of fighters that he signs and brings us over here to the States for me to get a chance to see. Normally, you wouldn't have the opportunity to see them because no other promoters gives them the opportunity, gives them the chance. They don't take a shot at them. They don't take a shot at them to bring them over here, put them in the bright lights, and otherwise they're over there overseas fighting people, not getting the recognition they deserve. So I kind of see, what's your thoughts on that? Klitschko's and the rest of these Eastern Europeans coming over, finally getting some credit, but it feels like they should be getting more. They should, I feel like there's more to give. They have more to offer over there in that side of the world. What's your thoughts? I'll take it over to you at that.
Okay. Thanks for calling in, man. Good question. This is something I've talked about at length on my show. Sorry about that, guys. Another ding, another text. It's something I've talked about several times over the years. And look, the way it happens throughout boxing history is every immigrant group here in the United States, it could be immigrant group / ethnic group, goes through kind of a growing pains period where you don't really have the political power yet, and you're the new kid on the block trying to prove yourself, and you don't have that acceptance. And then you could get to a point where if they keep pushing through, they become the dominant force in boxing, and they have the power structure in boxing. And so let's back up a little bit. Let's look at Mexican fighters and Mexican-American fighters, right? Mexican fighters right now I don't think there really is any argument anymore, but let's just say Mexican-American fans are the largest fan base that spends the most money consistently. And I don't mean that I have to preface because it's 2020. I don't mean that to put down any other groups of fans, any other ethnic groups of fans, any other demographics. But the bottom line is here in the United States, and I've seen the data and I've been at the fights, guys. I know what I'm talking about. Mexican-American fans are the power structure here in the United States. Why the fuck did Floyd Mayweather fight every year around Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day? Because he's Mexican? No, because he knew what the hell he was doing, and he agrees with what I just said. Amazingly, I tweeted that a month or so ago, and I got harassed for it. But anyway, I digress. There was a time where Mexican fighters were the new kids on the block, and they were getting ripped off in decisions. They were fighting African-American fighters and coming up short on the scorecards in Las Vegas. They were getting dicked over by the sport. They kept pushing through, and they became now the power structure in the sport to where Canelo Alvarez, a Mexican guy, he's getting the benefit of the doubt in close decisions against fighters from other parts of the world. Oscar De La Hoya, he got the benefit of the doubt in several decisions that went his way that people didn't feel he won. He lost a couple close ones too, but there's plenty of examples I could give, okay? Before that, how long did African-American fighters, black fighters here, have to fight and struggle just to get equal treatment in the sport? It took them eons, right? There was a color line for decades in the sport where there were champions, non-black champions who refused to fight black fighters. There were even black champions that didn't want to fight black fighters. Jack Johnson. Look, I understand a lot of hipsters love Jack Johnson, and he's the guy. When that dude became heavyweight champion, he stopped fighting black dudes. He drew the color line as a black guy, okay? So African-American fighters struggled for decades to get fair treatment in the sport. Italian-American fighters, yes, I'll personalize it. There's a great book by Rolando Vitale that I would recommend called The Real Rockies. Highly recommend that book. It's awesome. I've read it, and it talks about this. Italian-Americans at that time in America were seen as this not quite white mongrel race that quite didn't fit in, and they couldn't really draw a color line. They had to fight everybody, but they were like kind of the Mexican fighters before the Mexican fighters. Think of them that way. Jewish fighters. There's plenty of groups, right? So why do I say all this? Because now in the sport, Eastern European fighters are going through that process. If you go back to the Klitschko's, their era, Vlad fought just a few years ago, but his era was, I mean, they went pro in the late 90s, okay? Vlad fought for basically 20 years as a pro, guys. So for the 2000s, him and his brother were pushing through, really, really pushing through and fighting to get that equal treatment, that equal respect. I don't think they ever quite got it. Now, some people feel that they do, but for whatever reason, Vladimir Klitschko specifically is just never going to get the mainstream respect. But he pushed through, and I think 50 years from now, he'll be seen in a much better light than the way he's seen now. But he had to go through that process so that you could have the Lomachenkos, the Golovkins, the Kovalevs, those guys, the Usyks. And I say that those guys are getting more respect, more mainstream recognition now than the Klitschko's got. The Klitschko's were those first kind of groundbreaking fighters that pushed through, right? But these guys now are getting a little bit more respect. But we've seen Kovalev come up short against Andre Ward in Las Vegas in a fight that many feel he won. We saw Golovkin come up short against Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas in a fight that many feel he won, right? We saw Vasily Lomachenko fighting against Orlando Salido in a very, I don't want to say unethical situation, but rest assured, if Shakur Stevenson or let's take Gervonta Davis, if they were in a similar situation like that, I think Orlando Salido probably would have been penalized for going low dozens of times in that fight. So we've seen they're still not there. The Eastern European fighters are starting to get the respect, and guys like the Klitschko's 20 years ago started breaking down the walls. These guys are getting respect, but they're still not quite there. However, 20 years from now, it's very likely, if you just look at the way these things are going, that the power structure of this sport might be the Eastern Europeans. Because if you look at the amateur system right now, it's not just the Ukrainians, guys. It's not just the Russians. It's the Uzbeks. It's the Kazakhs. It's Eastern Europe / Central Asia, Russian-speaking former Soviet Union bloc countries that are producing the top amateurs, and those guys are coming over here now. They're wising up. They're not going to Germany to do a career there. They're coming here to the States. They're moving here. The caller, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but you mentioned Igis Klimas. What he has done is he's brought a bunch of those guys over here and kind of created an Eastern European farm system, to use a baseball reference, in Southern California, in the greater Los Angeles area, where a lot of these dudes are training and living. So you're going to see more guys like Dmitry Bivol. You're going to see Beck the Bullies coming up right now. Who are some of these other guys? Israel Madrimov. You're going to see more and more of these guys. That next generation, over the next 10 to 20 years, those guys I think are fully going to break through. What remains to be seen is, can they appeal to the mainstream fan base here in the United States? Because there just are not as many Eastern European people here in this country as there are Mexicans, right? Mexican Americans. So a Mexican fighter has the Mexican American fan base to market to, and the greater Hispanic fan base, regardless of race or nationality, just that the whole Hispanic culture, the whole Hispanic heritage, Mexican fighters can market to that. With Eastern European fighters, the Eastern European community just isn't that big. Can Eastern European fighters break through to the mainstream American population? If they can, they will ultimately become the power structure in this sport. And I'm telling you right now, that makes certain people really, really uncomfortable. All right, guys, we are going to end it here. Great show today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry we started late, but technology, it is what it is, man. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good to go once we got going. I know my audio levels were way off, so I apologize for that. We'll get all that worked out, and we'll be better and back next Monday. In the meantime, remember, Mark from Unrivaled Boxing is going to be on here Monday. If you guys have any questions for him or any specific topics that you want us to discuss, let me know, all right? Leave a comment here, tweet me something, whatever it is, all right? Take care, guys, and stay safe. We're going to get through this shit, all right?